When we originally escaped Laos, it was on a little boat in the middle of the night. We found our way across the Mekong, where relatives and friends of my father picked us up in a produce truck. They hid us in that produce truck and drove us to a refuge, a safe house, for a couple of weeks until we can find our way into the refugee camps in Thailand. Once we were there, we had to dig under barbed wire fences to get into the refugee camp because there was overflown with people. We had to find a way in. Once we were in, we were safe. It took about 8 or 9 months for paperwork to go through, family members who had already arrived to the United States to petition for a local church to help sponsor our family. And that's how the journey happened for us. A small Unitarian church in Maryland sponsored my entire family of 7. My brother was born in the refugee camp, and we made our way to the United States of America. During and after the Vietnam War, there were so many political sides within Laos. There was civil unrest. Many people within the country were torn apart by how they wanted the new government to be. And that itself was causing a lot of different issues with politics, social issues. There was turmoil. We still had many places being burnt down. Folks had been captured and put into re-education camps. My father was one of the people captured and then later escaped from the re-education camp. And once he escaped, he knew that the only way for us to have any level of peace with all of this uncertainty and unrest was to find a way to get out of the country and get his children, his wife, his mother-in-law, all women at the time, out of the country. My grandmother was a blessing for us because when she made the decision to come with us as a family, she was the anchor. Because she was older, she did not work when we came here. So when we came home from school, Grandma was home. When Grandma was home, she cooked Lao food. We had to speak the language. And that was also a gift for us because I speak fluent Lao now. And many of my peers who came here as refugees of war, a lot of them had a hard time holding on to language and culture because they didn't have the anchor. So my grandmother was such a powerful force. My grandmother is also extremely strong and she once fought a tiger when she had to travel through the jungle to go sell her noodles at a different town because in her town she couldn't make ends meet. So this is where I come from. And anytime I have a difficult time in life, I channel her strength and her wisdom. When I think of what influences that I have, is it more from the Lao culture or from the American culture? I don't think my brain really makes a strong distinction, the way in which I behave and show up. I do believe that they influence me, however. So for instance, an example would be respecting my elders, making sure that when I walk in front of an elderly person, I do that little bow. That's very Lao. I mean, that is something that we were taught. And then when I think about speaking up as a woman, having an opinion, I think that that comes from the American influence, and yet I saw that in my household. So it is definitely an influence of how I behave, but I don't think it's such a deep distinction that I have to go, okay, what would a Lao person do? What would an American person do? It's just become a part of who I am. The thing that I think is very fascinating about the Lao culture and being Lao American is that we have to capture some of the things that were lost because of the war. There are so many nuances to being Lao American that we want people to be exposed to. There is this urgent need, there's a sense of urgency with the Lao people because our histories, a lot of it is missing because of the Vietnam War and what happened with the masters that had to flee, with all the educated folks that wherever they landed in the world. So we are very interested in people coming and learning about those things, the culture, the language, the food. We also get overshadowed a lot by the other Asian cultures because we're a small country, landlocked. People are familiar with Vietnamese food, they're familiar with Thai food, they're familiar with Chinese, Korean food, but very few people really are familiar with Lao food, Lao culture, what makes us unique, what makes us different. And that is something that I really want those that are non-Lao to try things that are authentically Lao. And I also think that what is interesting is when you come from a refugee or war experience, you're going to meet people who have a mindset where there is fear there. There is trauma. There is also grit, though. There is also this tenacity, this not giving up, and we will overcome. So when you meet a Lao person in America, you're going to meet people who have that grit, who are very passionate, who want to succeed. And that comes from having that war experience. That comes from also generational trauma. So we do see some health and mental health concerns for at least the older generation. Now, the younger generation, we have better opportunities, more opportunities. But when you think about generational trauma, some of that mindset might still be there. That fear, that not having enough, those are things that I personally have had to overcome or continue to overcome. And I feel like many of the Lao Americans have that unique perspective.